Alright guys, welcome back. On to the final line of talents here. And the first one up is Hightide. This is another passive ability, and for this one, every 40,000 mana you spend brings Hightide, which is a buff, and that makes your next two chain heals heal for an additional 20% and not reduce with each jump. So you can look at this in kind of two ways. You can look at it in a it's gonna happen anyway as you're spending mana, or you can look at it in a I'm gonna spend as much mana as I can so that I can get these benefits when I need them. And so two of your most mana hungry abilities are Healing Surge, which is 3,800, and Chain Heal, which is 5,000. So 5,000 means you only need to cast Chain Heal 8 times to get the benefit of Hightide. So let's try doing that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This can take a while. 7 and 8. There we go. And exactly that. We have Hightide. So we see it's about 20 something seconds this buff will last for, and Chain Heal will now heal an additional 20%, but most importantly, it doesn't decrease with each initial jump. Or with any of the jumps, it doesn't decrease. So that means if you heal a target for 17,000, the other 3 jumps will also heal for 17,000. And that increases how much your Chain Heal heals by really a huge amount. And you get to cast it twice. So that's really nice, and this will happen anyway. Like I said, not most, all of your spells use mana. So Hightide will come even if you're not really paying attention to it. But if you do want to jump ahead and get it, or you're leading up to a situation where you think you will need it, you can of course use your spells with the most, well, with the highest mana cost to get there a bit sooner. And so of course you can combine this with some other things that increase the healing of spells, such as Deluge will also increase the healing of Chain Heal, and something like Unleash Life can also increase the healing of Chain Heal. And so putting them together, you can get some really fantastic numbers out of this spell. And again, similar to Flash Flood, it's nice to have an extra ability that is guaranteed to provide you some nice benefits without you actually having to have another ability to worry about and press at the right time. The one in the middle here is Wellspring, and I quite like this spell. It creates a surge of water that flows forward, healing friendly targets in a wide arc for 11,500. And so you can see here that the arc is pretty nice. It goes pretty far, pretty much to the wall there. And so positioning correctly, it can be fairly easy to hit a large amount of targets if you're in a raid or something like that. The thing that Wellspring doesn't really tell you though is that it won't heal everybody for 11,500. It's a bit sneaky in its description. It will heal 11,500 to 6 targets. If there are more than 6 targets, then it's probably going to be less than that. And for the exact maths, you can look it up. I'm not going to bore you with it here. But if you hit something like 30 people, then each person hit by this will actually only be healed for something like 3,000. So it doesn't really do what it says on the tin in some situations. But with a small amount of targets, then it will do exactly that. However, even though the healing is reduced for larger amounts of targets, it is still a pretty reasonable amount of healing. If you hit 30 targets with this, or if I hit 30 targets with this, with my eye level, then I get about 90 to 100,000 healing out of it, which is pretty damn good for a 1.4 second cast. Similar to Downpour, you get a pretty reasonable amount of healing out of it for a pretty quick cast time. However, Wellspring can affect many more people than Downpour. So finally here we have Ascendance, and this is one of your big cooldowns, or it is a big cooldown if you choose it, and it's 3 minutes. But for 3 minutes, not for 3 minutes, every 3 minutes, When you use this ability, you have 15 seconds within which all the healing you deal is duplicated, so doubled, and then distributed evenly. So these words are coming up again, distributed evenly, just like it in Cloudburst Totem. So if I cast Healing Wave, that means it will also cast Healing Wave again, but it will divide it amongst however many allies. So if I cast Healing Wave and there are 3 people nearby, it will heal each of them for a third of Healing Wave. If my Healing Wave is about 15,000, then if I cast Healing Wave on one person, they get the full benefit of that 15,000, and then up to 3 other people, if that's how many people there are, will also be healed for 5,000 each. It's duplicated and then distributed evenly. So let's have a quick look. Ascendance. So we get this fancy model, blue and skeletal-like, and basically it's just 15 seconds of healing god mode. Everything you do will be duplicated, all of your healing. So it's specifically for some dungeon bosses and raid bosses, there are some times where they will be putting out a lot of damage, and you really need to do some miraculous magical healing for a short amount of time. And so in those cases, Ascendance is definitely a really strong choice, or maybe even the best choice, because for those short periods of intense damage, all of your healing will be so much higher. And so this is basically a counter to some of those boss mechanics. You can of course use it yourself for imaginary boss encounters, such as in Battlegrounds when 2 giant groups meet for the first time. Being able to cause much more healing during those big fights will definitely you know, be very beneficial to you and your teammates. So, its general use is to counter those kinds of phases in, with bosses and raids and dungeons, but you can of course use it yourself however you like. The downside is it's only every 3 minutes. So every 3 minutes you can be a super healer for 15 seconds. But outside of those 3 minutes you don't really have anything. And that's where things like Wellspring and Hightide can be more beneficial because you can have them active more often. But it depends what you want to do and what the kind of situation is that you're going to be in. So that's it for this video, guys. That concludes all the videos for the talents, or for the normal talents anyway. I'm going to have one more video looking at the PvP talents. Thanks for watching, and come back next time.